Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the first season of the anime Psycho-Pass. And I saw that this had a free season on Xbox, so I was able to download it and everything and watch it, and I really enjoyed it. Now, there are some parts of it that were kind of weird, but that's kind of towards the end of the series, but I liked how it was as a detective show and kind of the whole setting up of the world. It definitely gets into its sci-fi premise of this whole thing of, in this future of Japan, they have this system, the Sybil system, that watches over everything, and you have this Psycho-Pass, and if it gets too cloudy, you're labeled a latent criminal, and they have these teams of people, inspectors and enforcers, that are shipped off to pretty much either bring you into a rehab center, which is just pretty much there to kill you, essentially. I mean, they do try and do stuff to help you out, or you're shipped off to be an enforcer, because the tag team is the inspectors watch over the enforcers. They use essentially the latent criminals to either catch or kill other latent criminals. And it's a fascinating system, and it's a fascinating way to look at justice and how a controlled surveillance state like this is just insanity. How it's got some advantages where people have assigned things that they can get to, but you pretty much don't have any free will. You're shuttered off in your cubicle and everything, and that's pretty much your life. You can barely afford to figure out where else to go. And this focuses mainly on Akane Tsunemori and Shinya Kogami. And they're really good characters. I think that they're the best fleshed out because they're the main focal points and the anchors throughout this. Now, granted, we get in with Makishima later on is also a focus because he's on the other side as the criminal element that they're having the cat and mouse with. But I really like the character depth and development that they do with them, and also their supporting characters. The great thing about this anime is it knows that it needs to dive into psychological things and really decides to get into those kinds of things, with Akane being the naive person at first, and we see her come full circle towards the end. Also with Shinya Kogami, how he was an inspector and then became an enforcer because his partner was killed, and it clouded his Psycho-Pass to the point that he wanted to get the person who was who had done that and bring justice to him. And I love that the whole series is centered around this concept of justice and what that means, because there's a lot of different things, and they bring up a lot of different philosophers throughout. And granted, it's more surface level stuff, but they do bring it in to show different kinds of viewpoints, because the whole focus is what their exploration of justice was within these characters like Akane and Shinya, and also to an extent Makishima. And I really like that, and how it added to their depth and how their different kind of thinking went about it and how they were solving cases and what was going on. Because this starts out and you see Akane on her first night, and her inspector over her is Ginaza, and he was Shinya's former partner, like inspector-wise. And seeing him go through and try and solve all these cases and stop all these killings, and as they keep going deeper and deeper, they find out that Makishima, the one who is behind the killing of Shinya's former partner, enforcer partner, he has been orchestrating all these things to destroy the Sybil system and destroy the system that he thinks is just disgusting. Now, granted, I agree with him that this system is wrong, but the way he's going about it and his means that he's using to achieve this end is what's I completely and utterly disagree with. I really like having an anime where you have to think about what's going on, being like, well, the Sybil system's not really just. You're being charged and punished for even thinking about things, thought crimes, that it can't even really be able to truly figure out if you're actually thinking or going to act on these things. That's crazy. So as we see them going through, we see, now granted, most of these people, we get to a point they're actually doing harm, but like the psychopaths is when they're clouded, or even people that should have cloudy psychopaths, like Akane, with what she's been dealing with, she's able to bounce back pretty easily. And when you get to Makishima, you find out that he's an atypical one, and that he can't be read with a psychopath. Like, he murders someone in front of Akane, and she can't do anything because her Dominator says that he's not doing anything wrong. That his psychopath is clear. And it's crazy to see that. It's like, you have to be careful what you put in control of your lives. And she couldn't do anything with that gun, and it affects her. And, of course, it also affects Shinya because he got put into a position, he's like, this person that's close to me. The person who had murdered my partner was close. He was like standing over him as he went away to orchestrate his escape plan with Akane's friend, and he pretty much kills the friend to traumatize her and to get away. It's like, holy shit, man. But it's all part of his plan to try and undo the Sybil system. And he gets to a point where he is using bioterrorism because, stupidly enough, the government and system thought that it was cool to pretty much have all of the food based on like this hyper oat, hyper grain thing. And it's like a mono, one structure thing that if you take that out, you vastly destroy the economy. I mean, you take out people's food, they will change to animals to survive. And you see him doing all that stuff because he creates these helmets that stop the Sybil system from labeling them as criminally latent, and they can just do whatever they want. You see this like negativity virus, which you can see going around today, where negativity just kind of spreads like a disease. And you just see that with the riots and everything that there were going on about like midway through the series. It's like, holy shit. It was really cool to just see them talk about that and figure out what's going on with it. And seeing Akane and Shinya trying, like, bouncing ideas off of each other and really trying to figure out how to get after Makishima. And we get this kind of big reveal that the Sybil system is essentially made up of like over 200 brains of pretty much criminal asymptomatic people, which Akane kind of, after she pretty much gets brought into their scheme, because towards the end of it, Makishima gets backed into the corner and goes with his food plan to destroy the food source, and Shinya decides to go off the grid and is going to kill him to punish him. The Sybil system doesn't want that, and instead wants his brain locked up with them to continue judging people and trying to make this perfect system, which isn't perfect. I knew that this was going to be like the mystery box that they were going to unpack within the series, at least in this season, but I don't really kind of know how I feel about it. I don't think it's completely stupid, but I thought it was just like, okay, I kind of get it, but once you get towards the end of it, it's done. They do a better job of kind of explaining it, and then you kind of like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It was kind of a Wizard of Oz kind of feel to me. I'm like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain over there. And I'm like, okay. But other than that reveal, I don't know if it's the brain portion that bothers me, or essentially the execution of the reveal itself that bothers me more. I don't think it's completely bad, but I wanted a little bit more, or even kind of a little bit more crazy. But I like how it stayed kind of grounded and as scientific and realistic as possible throughout this. Now, there are moments of levity, but this is a very serious anime dealing with very serious issues and subject matter, and I really like how they do that. And to getting to that, I like to see Akane's evolution and how she says that at first she's talking about, like, the law needs to be upheld no matter what. And I'm like, that becomes really problematic if the law itself is unjust. Laws and justice should work together, but that's not always the case. And she kind of figures that out at the end, because the Sybil system was pretty much using her as a tool to try and capture Makishima, but they are unable to do that. At the end of the anime, now at the end of the season, Shinya is able to get to Makishima and kills him and goes off. And Akane pretty much comes around to at the end, because of all the repercussions and because of some of the enforcers they've lost, it has affected their investigation team so severely that Ginaza has become an enforcer similar to Kogami. But I think that is mainly done because the civil system's mainly punishing him for his incompetence more than him being truly criminally latent. Once you see that the system thinks that it understands all these things and uses what it believes to be outliers to judge and execute all of these sentences on all these people to keep them in this fucked up kind of system, you're like, you don't know exactly what you're doing. And you almost have to think, did Makishima get off light? Because you got to figure out what your concept of justice is. He's murdered and made people murder. Well, not made people murder. Gave people the ability to act upon their base impulses and murder people. Is it justice for him to have his brain taken out, his individuality stripped away, and put into this collective group to try and judge people? That's a pretty harsh sentence, but I like how they think about that with justice in this show. It just keeps exploring it in different kind of ways that I really kind of like. It really makes you think about what your concept of justice is through these characters. And I really like that, and I really want to see, I'll eventually try and see where it goes with like the other seasons as well, but I would highly recommend this if you're into sci-fi and into deep character development. Just mainly with the main characters around, because I really like how they did this. They picked the ones that they were going to develop the most and put the most emphasis and focus on them, but that doesn't mean that the supporting cast are completely left in the dust. There's enough character development to be like, okay, I kind of feel for you and don't feel that you're a cardboard cutout standing in the background sounding shit to make sure that the main character knows where to go next. And it's pretty graphic, so not the most graphic kind of thing. I've kind of figured out since I've been consuming media that I've got a kind of tolerance base level. It's not on the level of like torture porn, but if you get squeamish over certain things, there's people and body parts kind of blowing up, so I would not recommend it if you're squeamish or anything, but if you really kind of want to think and have an anime that's pretty fun to watch, I would highly recommend this one. So, those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.